Hi, I'm Willow. I was diagnosed with a rare, weird pelvic cancer that was across from endometrial cancer and cervical cancer when I was 44 years old. At the time of diagnosis, I was a mom and I was in the weirdest transition of my life. I had been a longtime hairdresser, and somewhere in my hairdressing career had discovered that I had this weird superpower called psychic. And so I was transitioning my entire career into being a psychic medium and was, just bizarre as it is, was heading towards the psychic medium career. I have a background in comedy as well. And so I was doing this stand-up psychic medium reading with a side of comedy for live audiences and was jamming my life full of these live audience experiences as well as one-to-one stuff. And am a full-time mom to, a single child and of course wife to my sweet husband, dog mom, all the things. I had what felt like a cold that I could not get rid of. And I remember thinking, gosh, this is the longest fever I've ever had, because every time I would sit on the toilet, and I know it's TMI, but it's pelvic cancer, guys, so everything's going to be TMI. So sitting on a toilet seat, I would get a chill. And I was like, God, it's like I have a fever. And I always had a rough, scratchy throat. And at the end of the day, I was so fatigued and so tired. And I remember going, and I don't have any idea why this happened, but I remember going to my gynecologist and saying, I think I have cancer. Can you test me for it? And this was like pre-real symptoms of anything in the pelvic region. I just had a feeling that it was pelvic cancer. So I remember asking her if she could test me for cancer because I was convinced I had cancer. And she was like, we'll give you the typical pap smear, but we're not going to do blood work. And I was like, what do you mean you're not going to do blood work? And of course, pap smear came back normal, nothing obtuse, nothing out of the ordinary happened. And then shortly after that, my sexual symptoms changed and I started having pain post-orgasm. Pain post-orgasm. And I went back to my gynecologist and I said, this is really weird. She goes, well, you're a woman of a certain age, so of course you're going to have pain post-orgasm. It just happens to some women. So I started going on to the Kaiser website to figure out what would determine a reasonable cause for them to do anything. And I kept noticing a sentence in their scheduling platform said, if you're having heavy bleeding. And so I just started typing in all the horror show experiences that I could put in to my profile to get my situation bumped to the top of the list. So I lied and I said I was having heavy bleeding. I lied and said that I was having obscene cramping. I just knew something was wrong. So I finally get in to see the doctor. They do a uterine biopsy. They do blood work. Finally, they do a pelvic ultrasound. Everything pre-symptom, you guys. Honestly, I had cramping for orgasms and had a cold symptom vibe. And so they finally come back with all those results and nothing. They found nothing in the pelvic ultrasound, nothing in the biopsy. Everything is cancer-free as far as they're telling me. But now I'm bleeding. Now I am so symptomatic and I'm calling my gynecologist every week and I'm seeing other doctors and I'm going within the Kaiser network and I am just trying to find anybody to listen to me because now I'm gushing blood every second. If we have sex, it is a horror show and there's still pain and there's cramping and there's all this stuff that's happening. And I'm going to acupuncture. And I just want to be clear, going to acupuncture holistically, also trying to work on my symptoms, really doing all the green drinks a girl could have, really working on my overall body and health because, I'm a hippy dippy and that's what I think is the right thing to do. And nothing. Everyone is telling me I'm crazy, that I am a woman of a certain age, that I need to just chill out. And finally, a final doctor, a man with a little sticker on his chest that said, listen to women, tells me that if I want to get rid of the cramping pain and the bleeding, that I will just need a hysterectomy. The horror, the rage, the tears, it then took me off the chart of seeing doctors for the next 2 months. Back to acupuncture, back to holistic. I was so infuriated and so mad at doctors, and I didn't know what to do. So to the point that, you guys, I called in like pelvic holistic, like pelvic people, and they had me steaming my vagina. Finally, my acupuncture sent me to a naturopathic gynecologist who saw the obtuse bleeding. She sent me to a new imaging center, the new imaging center, women's imaging center out of Colorado. Did another pelvic imaging. Within 1 second, they found what they thought might be a tumor. They then, in that minute, did an MRI for me. They saw what looked like a mass, and it was understandable again why they missed it. The mass, I'd had a C-section. I'd had a C-section for my child 9 years prior. And the scar tissue was so great that it was masking the tumor. And what had happened when they did the uterine biopsy, the endometrial biopsy, was and I didn't know this, they put a glass tube through the cervix so they don't get cervical tissue disrupting the uterine biopsy. And as a result of that, they missed the freaking tumor. It was at the very tippy top of the uterus and at the very tippy top of the cervix. And because of the placement of the glass tube, they missed all of those cells in that original biopsy. And they disrupted the tumor itself, which is what was causation of all the bleeding that followed. And so in 6 months later, 6 months from that original image, 6 months from that original biopsy, we now have an image. And I have to take all this back to the doctor. Once I got the PET scan and they saw it light up, oh, I was so mad. I mean, I still, and this will make me for sure cry, I still cannot sleep through the night without having like a book on tape or my favorite, just like Gilmore Girls in my head. So I sleep with earpods in my head because when I wake up, and I'm 3 years out, you guys, 3 years out, and I still wake up in the middle of the night. And like last night, for example, I have my annual PET scan and my annual physical coming up, and I have this pain on the left side of my body right now. And all I can think is it bone cancer? And like, I get a cold and I think, oh my God, it's back. I get a stomach ache and I think it's all over. It's here. I get so mad that it took so long. I get so mad that nobody listened to me. I get so mad and I look at all the decisions that I made and where did I go wrong? Where did I not speak up for myself? Where did I do a bad job of advocating or trusting sometimes? I mean, even in my story, there's one part of that story that if I had made a different decision would have changed the outcome as well. I was scheduled for surgery and in for radiation and chemo. I feel like I won the lottery of cancer because I got surgery first. There is nothing better in my mind than having that ugly feeling removed from your body. And I can tell you guys instantly, all symptoms were gone, including I had this weird odor in my left armpit. My left armpit didn't smell anymore either. So like it was so in my lymphatic, like, and they took lymph nodes. I didn't have cancer in lymph nodes. Like I won cancer's lottery. Even though I was still on that precipice of stage 3, I won the freaking lottery. So they removed it. They got the margins. They took more than they were anticipating, but they got it all out. For the women out there, I can still have orgasms. Sex is still possible. Everything still works. You're welcome. It's okay. You do have to do pelvic PT, but it's all okay. I just want to, like, for anybody who's in this and going through it, there is a happy ending. So they did the surgery. I had to do 6 weeks of at-home recovery post-surge before treatment started. And that feels a little scary because you're like, oh my God, could it grow? Could it grow? Could it grow? But it was fine. Radical hysterectomy is not like a C-section. So like walking creates pelvic floor discomfort, create swelling. It was real different, and you can't go in. And I think the difference between, and again, I don't want to undermine anybody else's cancer situation, but the difference between somebody's surgery where you can see it on the outside versus somebody's surgery who's happening on the inside, you don't understand it and it doesn't make any sense, and you can't look at it to see how it's healing. I think that was really challenging mentally for me to not know if everything was okay downstairs. So what they had determined at that point, post-surgery, post-margins, looking at everything, was that the best course of action was to do radiation for 6 weeks. So I would have every Monday chemo, and they put me on they called it chemo light, which, by the way, it is not. Plus radiation 5 days a week. At the time, we were living in a tiny town called Salida, Colorado. And I had to go move to Denver to get this done. And I had like this 1 in 100,000 doctor who's like the best in the business, just lucky by proxy that I got assigned to him. And he's the best at his job, because radiation can do a lot of damage, both in the scar tissue arena and to your nether regions and to the potential of having orgasms again. So you really want to research and get a doctor who's really keen on taking care of you. The thing about treatment is, I made a decision at the beginning of my treatment that's different than some people. Again, you get to be the decider of your cancer. Everything is out of your control from the minute you're diagnosed. But the one thing that's in your control is who you're going to be in that moment. The thing that's in your control is how you're going to invite or not invite help in that moment. And what we decided as a family, because I was going to be living in Denver and we had lived there prior, I invited every single person. Again, I'd been a hairdresser, so you can imagine my list was upwards of 2,000 people. I emailed 2,000 people and gave them 5 ways that they could help our family through this challenging time. They could send money for sure. They could donate to a cause. They could send gifts if they wanted. I gave them our address. They could bring meals, and I put together a meal train. They could drive me to my appointment 5 days a week, and or they could come and take me for walks, because one of the things I read about radiation was that movement really helps with the scar tissue. Movement helps with your energy level, and movement helps with your mental health, as we know. And so over the course of that time, we raised over $10,000 for pelvic cancer. Cancer is not the F word. It is not that moniker. It's actually an invitation to invite in every single person that's ever loved you, cared about you, and see what you can bring in this moment to make it better than the F word. To all the moms, remember that moment when they handed you your baby and then they said you can leave the hospital, and you've been a mom for 1 second and you're like, what are you doing? How can you possibly send me into the world with this tiny wriggling thing that I don't know what to do with, and no training, and nobody's going to come and check on me? What do you mean? That's what cancer is. You go through this tunnel of time where all these people are touching you and poking you and checking on you and worrying about you, to this vacuum of time where nobody gives one red F about you. Now, yes, you're going to the doctor every 3 months for the first bit. Yes, you're getting regular checkups, but they're checking mostly just to see that there isn't scarring. They're checking to make sure that there isn't infection. They're checking to see that there isn't any new growth-ish, but ultimately, they're really just making sure you're alive. In addition to healing from cancer, my entire inside and outside is having what is called angioedema. Angioedema, for those of you who don't know, you're welcome to look it up. My face swelled up like something out of botched, and my inside swelled up like something out of botched. So some days I wouldn't have a voice because my larynx would be swollen. Some days I couldn't swallow things because my stomach, like my esophagus, had a swelling. Some days my entire face couldn't be out in public because I had swellings in my lips, over my eyes. It was crazy, and nobody knew what to do with me. We did finally find a solution to that, and I no longer am experiencing that. But that was one of the additions. The other experience that nobody tells you about is, in my case, I was thrust into menopause. What I was struggling with is, again, when you don't have estrogen, when you don't have progesterone, when you don't have testosterone, and there are no hormones in your body, you cannot do inflammation. Your bones are getting brittle. Your heart is being overworked. Your body is in an excess of overwork. Your adrenals are fatigued. Everything is overtime. So immediately I started losing balance. I have broken over the course of 3 years over 6 bones already. Just falling by proxy of just being a little bit brain fogged, being not totally in body, and my pelvic floor is off because it's pelvic cancer. Your pelvic floor is the reason for the season and how you walk and stand. And so even though I do Pilates, and even though I go to yoga, and even though I walk every day, and even though I ride my bike, and even though I'm very healthy, my center of gravity is still off. My brain fog is so great that sometimes my brain can't see the way that my brain used to see. And so I will trip and fall in a hole. I will fall off my bike. I will trip on a paracord. So over this timeline, I've been breaking bones in ways that I've never broken. The brain fog is astronomical. They call it chemo brain. I want to call it hormone brain, or lack thereof, because I don't know if it was the chemo or if it's the lack of hormones that have caused me to not have sentences in my brain. Again, I want to say I'm on the lucky side of cancer. And again, we're fingers crossing this, and one doctor is going to say no and another doctor is going to say yes. I finally did get on a patch of HRT, so I am on a light dose of hormones, like a light dose of estrogen. And I want to say it gives life, and it is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Most of us think that cancer is a death diagnosis. And so many people are PTSD'd out, traumatized from their experience, that they don't want to talk about it, that they don't want to go back into the section of their lives where it happened. And so we're not hearing survivorship. We're not hearing enough in the news about those who are thriving after cancer. I mean, I feel like it's a complete death rebirth cycle. I mean, not to get weird and woo on y'all, but like the Willow that was here before did a ton of work and she was a great person and I liked her, just fine. Who I am today is that no F's girl. And by that, I mean, of course I have lots of things I care about. I'm very passionate about everything, obviously. But I am freer than I've ever been. I think what I didn't know before cancer was how close that death's door is. And having seen it and having to really understand how fragile life is gave me permission ultimately to really put the gas on. And like, I'm going to YOLO for reals this time. I'm going to live to the nth degree. And I see so many, and again, dear sweet cancer survivors and friends, I understand the fear is so great, but if we are waiting to die, then we are not living. And I love that line of get busy living or get busy dying. That is our choice here. That is our choice here. And so get busy living, y'all. And those of you who have not been diagnosed but have seen somebody diagnosed, get busy living. Don't wait for this diagnosis to find out how close death's door is. Like, this is your life. This is your opportunity to do all the things that you want. Now that I know that the door is right there, I'm like, what else can I put on my docket? Where is that bucket list? And for me, it's not bungee jumping. For me, it's business. For me, it's really like blowing up my life in so many beautiful ways where I had otherwise been afraid. All the things that scared the pants out of me before, I'm like, well, I had cancer, so watch out. Like, I don't worry about what people think about me anymore. I'm not getting hinged and messed up about if that business opportunity could quote unquote kill me, because I know it won't now. Cancer didn't, so this thing's not going to do it either, I always like to say, mama got a brand new vag, y'all. But here's the thing. Here I am, cervix free, and we're having sex for the first time. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. It's amazing. Nothing hurts. And he's so nervous, because it's surgical. And poor little dude, you guys, he was like, it's just not as tight as it used to be. It's not like it used to be. And I'm like, Exactly. It's fantastic for me for the first time and however long we've been married. It's so much easier and greater and less painful and amazing. And you do have to go find a physical therapist who does pelvic floor therapy. You do have to buy the tools and utensils, but we got to get less uncomfortable about our bodies to begin with and a little bit more like intuitive and, into her. So it's just a new relationship with your body. And again, as I like to say, I just got upgrade. Now she's a Louis Vuitton. She was like, a Target purse before. No big deal. This is controversial take, and I am absolutely dying on this hill. As a green juice drinking, acupuncture, holistic, hippy dippy, never had a pharmaceutical in my freaking life prior to cancer. Guys, you can't drink the green juice out of cancer. You cannot do cancer without a medical professional. Go get the surgery, do the radiation, do the freaking chemo, do the hard work if you want to be here. And I'm not just saying that because I went through it this way and I want you to have my same pain. I'm saying it because I have a multitude of friends that didn't do the hard work because they listened to some hippy dippy guru tell them that they could green juice or ice bath or, mitochondria themselves out of cancer, and they are not here. Don't be a baby. Get a cancer doctor immediately.